Hi, I'm Casey, and I have a crush on food. And today I have a crush on posole, which is a Mexican stew. It's really good. It's officially spring now, but it got cold again last night. So I thought this stew sounded great for today. This stew dates back to ancient Aztec civilization, so you can look it up if you want to. But it's really good. You use meat and some vegetables. It's a broth-based stew, and it's really delicious. You can use any kind of meat you want. Today I'm going to use pork, but you can definitely use chicken if you want to. So let's start. So we're going to start the stew by cutting up the pork, and you want about 1.5 pound pork loin. That's going to be one of the leanest cuts of pork that you can find. So it's kind of a vertical piece of meat. So I'm just going to show you how I normally cut it up in case you've never done that. So you're going to cut it lengthways into cylinders, just like this. And then you're going to cut each cylinder into 3 or 4 pieces, so you have some nice small chunks of meat. And you can cut a few cylinders off at a time and then stack them and then cut them into chunks just to save yourself some time. That's what I usually do. This meat's really tender and it tastes great in the stew. So once we've got this all cut up, we're going to add it to the spices, and then we're going to throw it in a pot. So you're going to need a decent sized bowl to mix the meat with the spices, and I have already measured out the spices in here. You're going to need 2 tablespoons of chili powder, 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of cumin, and 1.5 teaspoons of paprika, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. But you can find the full recipe at crushonfood.com. And you're going to reserve 1.5 teaspoons in a separate container, because we're going to add that to the stew once it's already cooking in the pot. So here I've got most of the spices, and we're going to add the meat. And just toss it a little bit and coat it with the spices. So I got my big pot out. Make sure you start with a big pot, and it's not a bad idea to use a bigger pot than you think you'll need, because more space is better than not enough. So I already have it on a medium to a little bit medium-high heat, and it's nice and warm. So we're going to put some olive oil in the pan, about 2 teaspoons. Just coat the bottom of the pan. We're going to add the meat first and brown it for about 5 minutes. Just toss it around. And when it's mostly all browned, we're going to take it out of the pan and we're going to saute some of our vegetables. The pork is all brown, so we're going to remove it from the pan. And the bottom of your pan is going to get kind of dark. That's okay. Once we add the liquid, it's going to get loosened up, and that's what kind of adds even more depth of flavor to the stew. So don't worry about that. So once we got all the meat out, you're going to add a little bit more oil, maybe a teaspoon, 1.5 teaspoons. I usually don't measure though, I just kind of drizzle it in there. So, alright. So put some more oil in and kind of swirl the pan around. And we're going to add 2 cups of chopped onion, 1 chopped up bell pepper. I usually use red or yellow, but you can use green if you want, and a tablespoon of minced garlic. So you can use the bottled minced garlic from the grocery store, or you can use a garlic press and use fresh garlic. So you're going to saute these for kind of translucent and the bell peppers look a little bit softer, maybe a little brown, then you're good to go, and we'll add the rest of the ingredients. Veggies look great, and some of the brown stuff at the bottom's already started to loosen up. So we're going to add 1 can of fire roasted diced tomatoes, undrained, and we're going to add 2 cans of hominy, drained. And you can buy white hominy or golden hominy. I usually get 1 can of each just so it's a little bit more colorful. So give it a good stir after you add those. We're going to add the meat back in. And any juice that has collected in the bowl with the meat, just dump it all back in. We're going to add 2½ cups of chicken broth. So it really helps if you heat it up a little bit before you add it to the pot because it will boil faster. If it's at room temperature, that's fine, but if it's cold, I always have a box of chicken broth in my fridge, and you'll probably want to heat it up. Alright, and we're going to add the reserve spices that I told you about before. Sprinkle that in there. And we're going to bring it to a boil. Once it starts boiling, go ahead and turn the heat down to low, and you're going to let it simmer for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to add some green veggies. The stew has simmered for about 15 minutes, and now comes the crush-on-food added bonus, which is that we're going to put some greens in here. You can use collard greens, or you can use kale greens, mustard greens. They sell these great bags of pre-washed, cut-up greens at the grocery store, and that's what I use. So this bag is 16 ounce, but we're just going to put 8 ounces, which is half the bag, in here. And once you've got it in there, then just cover it. And you're going to let it simmer again for about 7 to 10 minutes while the greens wilt. You don't want the greens to cook too much because they kind of get like really dark, color. And it looks better. I think they taste a little better too when they just barely wilt. So I'm going to put the lid back on, and in about 10 minutes, dinner will be ready. The posole is done, and it looks great. It smells really good. I'm going to give you a little serving suggestion. This is a Mexican stew, and as with all Mexican food, it tastes better with cheese and avocado and sour cream. So if you want to put a little shredded cheese on top, a couple of slices of avocado, some healthy fat for sure, and some sour cream if you like. That's how we eat it in my house. This is healthy. It has some really good vegetables in it, some lean meat. And so enjoy your posole, your Mexican stew. And don't forget the cerveza. Cheers!